A lot of my friends, when they first saw how allegedly ICP, according to ChainSpect, was ranked #1 in the world in terms of most used blockchains on Earth by total transactions since token generation event, when they first saw that, they thought it was very unbelievable. They thought it was ridiculous. But apparently, according to ChainSpect, that is the case. And I'll get into that in today's video, and also I'll talk about later as to the fact that ICP has been up almost 10% in the past 24 hours and now being at $3 yet again. I'll get all into that in today's video. However, I first want to explain how nothing I say is financial advice. I am not telling anyone to do anything. This is just my personal opinion, my perspective, and my viewpoint on it. However, besides that point, again, ICP being the first ranked in the world as of right now, according to ChainSpect, in terms of most used blockchains on Earth by total transactions since token generation event, that's kind of ridiculous, because what that means is that ICP literally overtook everything else, which, by the way, includes Solana, Hedera, Stellar, and of course, basically, again, everything else. And I'll actually show a part of the chart on the screen, but I'll just kind of showcase just how ICP is actually overtaking some of the quote-unquote giants out there, which a lot of people would think, right, naturally, that, hey, you know what, aren't they supposed to have more total transactions than ICP? But allegedly, that apparently isn't the case, which is kind of, again, unbelievable to some people, but seemingly that is the situation that we're seeing as of right now. Wow, that's my reaction, right? I mean, what else am I supposed to say? Oh, you know, this is so bad. Well, how is it bad? It's actually not. But yeah, besides that point, people like to tell me sometimes, okay, ICP may be ranked #1 when it comes to that chart, but why is it still only ranked 45th in the world? Like, it's not even top 10, people like to say. So how can it be #1 when it comes to most used blockchains on Earth, basically, in terms of total transactions since token generation event? I know it may seem kind of odd. It may seem a little bit like a mismatch. But here's the thing. I think sometimes people are obsessed over what's going on when it comes to the charts, but they don't actually take a look at the activity of that project. Because keep in mind, some developers out there, not saying everyone, but some developers out there and some enterprises out there, they could care less about, you know, popularity. What sometimes they care about is, let's say in the case of the fundamentals, right? They care more so about what could actually help them as opposed to what is popular. It's like, for instance, I know some friends out there who actually prefer to use Skechers. And the reason why is because they find it comfortable. They find it very amazing. They find it, you know, fantastic. They're not sometimes looking for the most fancy or flashy shoes. Sometimes they're not looking for that. Sometimes they want practicality. You know, my friends who are nurses, who are doctors and stuff, they want to use Skechers in some cases because they find it actually functional. That's the thing. So ICP, it kind of reminds me of a pair of Skechers. Maybe it's not the most coolest, most fantastic thing of all time, but the fundamentals are there. That's the thing. I think this, if anything, also does showcase that the internet computer is not necessarily forgotten about, because some people like to say that ICP is cooked, but we sometimes often ignore the improvements that has been made so far, basically. Case in point, take a look at Mission 70. This strategic plan that was allegedly designed to cut ICP inflation by up to 70% by the end of 2026. We haven't heard too much about that as of late, but the last time I checked, it was like about halfway through. So that's pretty impressive, right? I mean, if ICP inflation could be reduced by up to 70% by the end of this year, that's legendary stuff. And if they're halfway through accomplishing that, allegedly the last time I checked, it's 2 thumbs up for me. Why not? You know, ICP does have an infinite supply, which may seem like a bad thing. But, you know, Solana has an infinite supply. Dogecoin has an infinite supply. I don't see many people complaining about that. Suddenly it's a big issue when it comes to ICP. I mean, I get it, right? Some people like to say, oh, it's a little bit concerning, but we have to consider sometimes a lot of these projects, they have measures that kind of mitigate that. And also, if we take a look in the case of ICP, Dfinity is actively trying to look to reduce it, right? As evidently seen with Mission 70. That's pretty legendary. And not to mention, if we consider cloud engines, a very big focus as of right now. You know, through that, Dfinity is very focused on the cloud market. That's really fantastic. Take a look at Caffeine AI, a self-writing apps platform. There's already version 3, right? When it comes to Caffeine AI, version 3, I mean, it's pretty impressive considering how Caffeine AI simply hasn't been around for that long. And what is Caffeine AI? Again, it's a self-running apps platform. So basically, I can be like, hey, try to make me an app that chooses which hat I should use today. And I put some pictures or whatever. I mean, it could try to do that, but I'm just saying it's kind of like an example. It's kind of like an AI assistant, I would say, if I would even want to put it that way, but for like making apps. I mean, it is what it is. But besides that point, when I take a look at, in the case of ICP being at around $3, it's kind of impressive because Bitcoin's going down with MicroStrategy, the news of it selling a couple $1 million worth of Bitcoin and a lot of people overreacting and then panic selling their Bitcoin. Because of that, for whatever reason, some altcoins have recovered. Kind of bizarre, right? Now, let me explain the MicroStrategy situation just a little bit. So, MicroStrategy, which historically, right, the last time we saw them sell Bitcoin was like years ago. And they recently sold a couple $1 million worth, which again, a lot of people kind of overreacted. Keep in mind, MicroStrategy holds many billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. They only sold a couple million. That's like a drop in the ocean, basically, if you compare it to, what MicroStrategy actually holds. But case in point, that showcases just how volatile this space is, because even the quote-unquote considered most stable project out there within this space, aka Bitcoin, is affected that much just by MicroStrategy selling a couple $1 million worth of Bitcoin? So bizarre, right? That sounds so bizarre to a lot of other people out there looking into this space, but that's just kind of how it operates. Now, I get it. The rationale that some people may have is that, oh, Michael Saylor, he has this vibe where he doesn't want to sell Bitcoin. Well, I get it. The vibe of Michael Saylor feels like he's just 100% believing in Bitcoin. Like that, right? So when we see MicroStrategy sell a couple $1 million worth, it seems a little bit counterintuitive to what Michael Saylor is oftentimes saying. Some people would arguably say. But it's not a major concern for me because they're not selling billions. They're just selling a couple million. And also, not to mention, in like 6 months' time, even just like in 2 months, with all the stuff that's going on, no one's really going to care about that anymore, in my opinion. It's just like a speed bump. It's like, whatever. There's 20,000 miles to go. It's not a big deal, in my opinion. But yeah, besides that point, ICP, keep in mind, is still around 6 times lower than where it once was at its peak in 2024. So in 2024, in that year alone, it peaked at almost $19, basically. So ICP, as of right now, being around $3, it's around 6 times lower than that. So ICP, the journey is still kind of a little bit far, in my opinion, maybe, to where it once was. Not to mention, ICP back in November of last year was at around $9. So we got to consider that. We're still even around 3 times lower than November of last year. And November, keep in mind, that's not a good time for altcoins. No one's saying, oh, November's this fantastic time for altcoins. No one's saying that, in my opinion, at least that I've heard of. It wasn't a good time for altcoins. And still, if we consider $9 is at one point considered a little bit bearish when it comes to ICP, but the fact that we're still around $3 as of right now showcases just how low we've gone, which isn't inherently such a bad thing according to some people, because some people actually like the dip, some people don't. But I don't mind the dip. That's the thing. I like the dip with the chicken tenders. I also like the dip when it comes to this space. Now, I'm only dollar cost averaging once a month. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But if it goes back to even just $9, I'm already really happy, actually, because if, let's say on the flip side, let's say I really cared about Bitcoin, if it goes back to its all-time high, it's not even 2 times more than that. I'm just saying. So that's just some food for thought, at least personally for me. But I am not telling anyone to do anything, and I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward. So I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day.